Hey, everyone. Anthony Fantano here. Big storm going on outside right now, so I apologize if you can hear that. There's a literal weather storm going on outside. Meanwhile, over the weekend for a little bit, a cultural storm, a musical storm, a drama storm was brewing over some comments that I guess Young Thug made about André 3000 on T.I.'s podcast that seemed a little conceited or just off base. It's struck up a pretty huge debate. I haven't dived as deeply into it as I could, and I thought I would just kind of get a gist of it right here and react and give my own thoughts to this whole fallout and see what exactly the communication breakdown is. So shout out to Eric Skelton, as well as lots of other people who have been posting this clip around on social media. Gonna give this thing a sample and see exactly what the hell is going on here.
203,000 songs. I ain't never paid attention to him. Never in my life.
You crazy. You missing out.
Right.
You missing out.
That's
Y'all
what-
need to work together. That's what you, hey, look.
That'd be crazy.
We most definitely
Yo,
be crazy.
motherfucking next move. Just like you went and worked with Elton John, nigga.
Elton John like to kiss ass. André like his ass kiss. Elton John like, hey, well, I love you. I remember your first song. I remember Gucci first song. When is School Up getting out? Like, he just more of like a fan type of nigga to the point where it's like, I'm like, nigga, let's do music. He like, nigga, bet. And Andre more like, yo, this is the secretary. Like, hey, tell that nigga to throw it, nigga.
Talk like that, though, bro.
Fuck wrong, don't get on the fucking phone, nigga.
No,
You know what it is? He told you stupid ass answer. You answered it.
See, that's what.
It's more like that, nigga. We from Atlanta, nigga.
This is our ally.
No,
Yes, he is.
bruh. Who?
He's with us. 3,000.
He who ally?
He's one of
He who ally?
us.
Yeah, fuck right.
Man, yes, he is.
Why you don't rap like him?
What do you mean?
You don't talk like him, dress like him, look like him?
Hey, man, that ain't for me.
You ain't try to portray none of that.
But you're doing it.
Where the fuck is any of this coming from? Like, okay, I'm into the idea that maybe there's some greater context here that I'm not fully understanding, and that's partially why I didn't jump on this immediately, like the day that this came out, because, I mean, look, the figures being discussed here and who are a part of this discussion, I know them as artists, I know them as media figures, I enjoy their music, but I don't pretend to know or understand any of them on a personal level, as much as I might look up to artistically a guy like André 3000. I don't really know what he's like in real life. He could be a great person and not so great person, and honestly, within reason, it doesn't really matter to me whether or not he's a supremely nice guy or a jerk to an extent. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter to me. I mean, I love his music. I think he seems like a cool dude, and I appreciate him from a distance. He doesn't need to be nice to me or anybody else for my opinion of him to be higher or lower or anything else. So maybe at the end of the day, given that a lot of these people do cross paths and communicate with each other to an extent, maybe Thugger does know him to be a bit of a jerk or conceited or something like that. But actually looking into this clip, it seems like Thugger is the one personally with the problem. I mean, it seems like off the bat, he's a little offended at the insinuation that an artist like André or a duo like Outkast might have paved the way for him. And while when I listen to Young Thug's music, I don't necessarily hear Outkast. I don't. I am not against the idea of Thugger saying, I've never listened to him, I've never paid attention to him, he's not someone who's directly an influence on me, but what he's not really understanding, and what comes off as really like pretentious, is he's not historically appreciating the fact that Outkast and specifically André like really opened these doors of eccentricity and allowed for more wild and more experimental and more out there figures like Young Thug to grow in the way that he has within the culture. And it's even weirder that he goes in on these comments in a way where he ends up sounding like the old head when T.I. presses him and says, hey, he's our ally. He's from Atlanta like us. He's a part of the same music game as we are, a part of the same culture that we are. And Thugger is questioning him like, how come you don't talk like him, dress like him, act like him, so on and so forth. And it's like, what? I mean, after the years of people making fun of you and deriding you and questioning your artistic legitimacy and substance over what you wear and how you talk and how you act, this is like your response. And look, while I understand that intergenerationally, when you're talking about certain music cultures or genres or whatever, you're going to have tension. You're going to have some beef between artists that represent different eras. It's going to happen. It's understandable. And while I know that it's easy and it's very, I guess, fashionable to make fun of or attack older artists for not being hip, not being with it, not being understanding, which we can't even say that André is in this case because he has openly praised Young Thug. There's a clip of him at Phife Dawg's funeral, sort of citing Wayne and citing him as artists who, have like kind of changed the game and pushed the envelope and have brought things to a new precipice. But having said that, I just feel like the other side of that coin that is equally as stupid and doesn't get quite as much, attention is when younger artists wear it as a badge of honor to be completely ignorant to any and all music or art that came before them. Like, oh yeah, you could name these 5, 10, 15 classic artists in whatever genre that came out with these groundbreaking records, so on and so forth. Oh, well, I've never listened to any of that. I've never heard any of it. I'm most likely never going to hear any of it. I don't know what any of that is. And look, it's okay to have not heard everything. It's okay to not like everything. I certainly don't like everything. And as much as I try, I will most likely go to my grave having not heard everything. But having said that, like, having not heard shit doesn't make you special, dude. Having not heard shit doesn't make you a cooler, smarter, more interesting person. It's just something that you don't know. It doesn't make you interesting. Doesn't make you bold or daring or, oh, he's edgy. He hasn't listened to any André 3000. Ooh, you're just, oh, wow. Whoa. Having not heard shit doesn't make you smart. It doesn't make you cool. It doesn't qualify as a special talent. It only looks good if you're then able to move past that point and actually venture out and try something new or, go into the unknown. There's nothing admirable per se about just wearing your ignorance like a badge of honor. Who cares? So the midsection of the conversation, which most people I think are talking about, is when T.I. cites the fact that Young Thug collaborated with Elton John, which frankly, who really cares? I feel like that's kind of a weird and awkward dig on T.I.'s part. If Thugger doesn't want to work with André or just hasn't worked with André or isn't interested for whatever reason, I feel like citing the fact that, oh, you worked with this old eccentric piano playing pop artist, why not André 3000? Yeah, I don't think having worked with Elton John means that you need to or should work with anybody else. Who gives a shit? But then, I guess maybe in a weird way, and insecurity or maybe the dislike of a particular vibe came through when Young Thug responded to that, saying that Elton John likes to kiss ass. He's a fan, which is true. Elton John does voice very loudly when he is the fan of particular artists or things that he sees as lacking in a lot of modern music. Guy just seems open. André 3000, though, he says, oh, well, when you try to contact André, you're getting a hold of his secretary and so on and so forth, which, I mean, André, I think Thugger's kind of taken that a little personally. André is and has been for quite a long time. He's around. He does his features sometimes, but he's a more elusive figure. And it seems that that's been the case for a long time, and with a lot of people. I think that he prefers for there to be a bit of a wall of separation or a gate or something, just kind of, being a layer or a veil or something between him and the music industry and figures who are operating in it, whether that be you or anybody else. I'm sure even if Elton John wanted to call Andre 3000, he may in fact have to go through his secretary first. I don't know. But yeah, Andre is not somebody who is kind of swimming through the music industry actively in the same way that Elton John is. And from what we know of his personality and just demeanor, he's just not that same kind of guy either. Now, the problem with Thugger here, I think, is that he kind of cites that as an insult, or the way that it comes off. It's like he's personally offended by it, when in reality, he may just be more into the idea of collaborating with Elton John because he just vibes with his personality more, or, he just kind of met or connected with the guy in person and just had a good time, a good experience, and maybe that just wasn't the case with Andre 3000. I mean, clearly Andre appreciates his artistry and sees what the new generation is bringing and is totally cool with that. And I don't know, maybe Thugger just got a bad vibe about, just not being able to get a hold of him, or, being written off, or just not being able to get that connection that he might have wanted at some point. But having said that, to me, this kind of sounds like the sort of thing that you should just, I don't know, have kept in your pocket, not really brought up, not really gone into. Just seems really silly. Seems really egotistical, in my opinion. And, at the end of the day, I think it's Thugger who ends up not looking too great as a result of all of this. I think Andre really just has to kind of keep his mouth shut because, frankly, there's already an instance of him out there having said, like, yeah, I appreciate Young Thug. I appreciate what his generation is bringing to the table. And, meanwhile, we have Thugger over here looking bitter. And if, again, this is as a result of some behind-the-scenes stuff that we're not privy to, it's kind of hard to convince an audience to be on your side when you're coming out like this and they were not subject to whatever the hell experience it was that you were that somehow put you in your feelings, and yet there's no real explanation for it or anything. So I don't know. It's just not a terribly good look, and I think I'll leave it at that. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Young Thug, Andre 3000, forever.